If you want to feel more calm, confident, and connected in your life, the Love Your Real Life membership is for you. Members love the simple daily challenges that help create small, consistent actions that lead to the change that they want. And then the live sessions that are throughout the month that leave them feeling grounded, relaxed, and supported. There's a link in the show notes to join. I would love to see you inside of this membership. Welcome to the Love Your Real Life podcast. I'm Faith Lauterbach, and this is a space to help you heal, rebuild, and create a life you truly love, even if it looks different than you imagined. Each week, I'll be sharing tools, encouragement, and real conversations about what it means to move forward after betrayal, heartbreak, or simply life not going as planned. I am honored to walk alongside you and help you love your real life. Well, hello, and welcome back to the podcast. Today's episode feels really special to me and a little vulnerable. Over the last few weeks, we've been talking about self-love, dating again after experiencing betrayal, and what it looks like to build healthy relationships. But today, I wanted you to hear from someone else. I've shared a lot about what healing after infidelity looked like for me, the fear, the rebuilding, the self-trust, the moments of wondering if I would ever feel safe in a relationship again. But what we don't talk about as often is what it looks like to be on the other side of that, to build a relationship with someone who has been through betrayal previously. When my first marriage ended, I really didn't think I would ever feel safe in a relationship again. I didn't think I could trust my instincts. I didn't know if I would just always be waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was pretty sure that's what I would be doing if I ever even went into a relationship. And I said time and time again that I would never even do it. It wasn't worth the risk to me. And yet, here I am. I have been married now for almost 7 years. Um, and so I thought it would be just a fun conversation, an interesting conversation to sit down with my husband, Seth, to have a open and honest conversation about what it looked like to build trust, emotional safety, and a healthy relationship with me. We're not sharing this because we've done everything perfectly. We definitely haven't. I don't think that's possible as humans to do anything perfectly. But we are sharing this because finding love again is possible. And it doesn't happen through these big grand gestures. It really happens through patience, transparency, consistency, and open and honest communication. So if you can relate to this, if you are in this process yourself, whether you are a person who has experienced infidelity and you're looking at starting a new relationship, or if you are the person who would be in the new relationship and the person that you are um, liking and wanting to be in a relationship with has experienced infidelity previously. Hopefully that all makes sense right there. Um, And so we're going to just talk here, honestly. And we hope this conversation feels grounding, honest, and hopeful. And just know that there's no perfect way to do this. So don't beat yourself up if you're in this process and it feels hard and scary. It will. What we're sharing today is definitely not prescriptive, but it's really what has worked for us. I will note here that I did interview Seth previously in season 1, episode 30. So if you haven't listened to that one, that might be a fun one to listen to after you listen to this one. Okay. All that being said, let me reintroduce to you my husband, Seth. You can
Thank you.
say hello.
And you asked me to come back, so that's good.
I did. I did ask you to come back. Okay. So before we dive in, can you share a little bit about what it was like for you when we met and started initially talking?
Yeah, so to go back a little before that even, I had been married previously as well for 16 years and divorced obviously. And then had experienced a relationship of about 2 years that I was out of at that point by 6 months. Um after that relationship ended and I was at a point where, you know, yours and my kids are all similar in age, so they're all in high school kind of uh period and very active, and I was at a point where I too was kind of questioning like, am I interested in all in any kind of relationship again? I don't even know. I just thought, you know what? I'm not gonna worry about any of that right now. I'm just gonna be dad. I'm gonna work and I'm gonna be dad. And those were my 2 jobs at that point. Like I have no interest in anything else. And yeah, I mean I started going to the gym. You had been a member at this gym and our gym was very small, tight community. So everybody kind of knows everybody, which was really great. And everybody, good or bad, everybody kind of knows each other's business a little bit, which honestly wasn't a bad thing. It was a pretty good situation. And so, I had obviously heard that, that you were divorcing and everybody kind of knew the whole story behind it. So I took notice of it, but I didn't dig into it or get into the gossip. Everybody just kind of talked about the situation. And so I knew some of the backstory there, I guess. So when it came to, seeing you more, it turned out that we ended up in the same class on a regular basis at the gym. So I was seeing you more and more, and I was just kind of observing how you were with people and everything. So kind of another offshoot story. I don't know if you want to tell the story about needing help, or you want me to tell the story.
No, sure, you go. I would love to hear you share.
So you had been working for a nonprofit that was getting some new office equipment donated, and the group had to have the old stuff taken out and the new stuff brought in, and it just required some moving help, and obviously some, I guess, folks that were fit enough that they could help. You had asked for help, so I thought, oh, this is a good opportunity for me to just learn more about this person. So
And
I
I put up a note at the gym and just said, "Anybody that would be willing to help," and I put the 3 different times we needed help, "Please sign up," and Seth signed up for all 3 times.
Yeah, so obviously I was interested in, I mean, to say that I'm just a really nice guy and I wanted to help, I think would be a little misleading because obviously I had an ulterior motive. I wanted to see who you were, basically. So I went and helped, and through that and just the natural situation of us going to the same class together, we started to talk after class. There's like a couch area, and people would sit and kind of change shoes or whatever they were doing and kind of have some small talk and whatever. So that's kind of how it started. And then from that, it continued to people. It was springtime, early spring, as it was getting nicer out. People would kind of go for walks after their workout. So then we started taking walks together, and um, and then that became a thing that even after we started dating, we went for walks. So um,
Yeah. And we always had an RX bar and a Fit Aid.
we're gonna little something to eat, little something to drink. We would talk on the couch, and then eventually we started talking on walking, um, and that's kind of where that went. So
Yeah.
I think it was very natural, like, just two people having conversation and just kind of learning about each other a little bit in a very, it's kind of a safe environment. And there's other people around. I'm sure they were all watching, but um, it was nice just because it was kind of a safe situation for both of us to just kind of chat with the other one and, um, you know, see what
Yeah,
happened, honestly.
definitely. As that kind of progressed from kind of just like chatting, small talk to you deciding to ask me out on a date, what were like first impressions going into that about potentially getting into a relationship with someone, knowing my past, knowing that I had been in a marriage previously that had ended, um, and betrayal being a part of that story?
Yeah, I mean, I guess from my standpoint, my thought was like, we just have to be a good communicator and be upfront about things and, be open to whatever. And I felt like we both seemed to come into the relationship in a similar way in the sense that we both were very upfront. So I guess going back to how we even went on the date, I had gotten your uh, number from the, helping to move things request. And then I thought, I can't message this woman based on this. I feel like this is not a genuine earning of the phone number. So basically, I can't remember if I asked you for your number. I think I did, but somehow I asked for basically permission to text you uh, outside of the moving of office supply slash furniture situation. So anyway, got lucky, got the number clearance, and then we started texting, and then I was kind of at a point where I'm like, we're having nice text messages, but I feel like it's time to call. So at some point, I think I just messaged you, and they said something about, "Can I just call you?" Because there's only so far you can go with a text message. So um, from the rest of it, I feel like, or the other part of your question, I feel like it was just a matter of just being open about everything, and you know, we were very upfront, like, "Hey, we both came together from a similar place, like, hey, I'm a dad,' and you were like, hey, I'm a mom,' and that was kind of the number one thing, like, we were upfront with our priorities, I guess, and so that was a big thing, but to me, it was the healthiest way that I've ever started any kind of relationship, and maybe that speaks to, like, our maturity in life, I suppose, but also our unwillingness to put up with any BS. Like, I didn't have any desire to, get hurt or anything, and you obviously didn't either. And so we were both I felt like we were both very upfront and just said, "Hey, this is where I'm coming from." We both kind of did the same thing, and I think that was the key was just the fact that we were very open and kind of forthright with our
Yeah.
perspectives and what we were looking for. I mean, neither one of us were necessarily looking for a long-term relationship, but we just kind of stumbled into the thing, and we were like, "Hey, this is not what I expected, but let's see where this goes." So,
Mhm. Yeah. And I know we have talked, like, before about how both of us felt just kind of this fear, how it was, like, an exciting time when we first started dating, but it also was a very scary time because there is that potential of, just that process of learning who somebody is and what if, you know, what if they're hurt in this relationship? What if this doesn't work? What if, there's a lot of what ifs in those early times of dating. So it was really fun, but it was also really scary.
yeah, I would say that I definitely had a fear of, being hurt, but, it was a different vibe there was a lot of openness from the get-go, and maybe, like I said, some of that was our maturity, some of that was maybe just how we started talking too. It wasn't like we met at a bar and went on a date right away. Like, we talked over the course of, I don't know, 2 months maybe, that we
Mhm.
kinda or a month and a half, that we started talking on a very regular basis, and it wasn't huge talks, but, like, it was a very slow, progressive thing. We also had friends around too, so to be fair, like, I had a friend that was telling me things, and you had a friend that was telling you things, and all these people, and again, we're in a small town in that gym that everybody's watching. So if there was a concern in any way, they would have been like, "Hey, I don't know if you knew this, but 6 months ago that, Seth was doing this," or, you know, there was a lot
Yeah.
of, character references around, you might say. So that was,
Yeah.
I think, really helpful.
I just thought we just were kind of talking about this the other day, that there was a person who I was really good friends with, um, that was really helpful to me through this whole process of just like me going through a divorce and then, you know, getting thrown to the other side of that. And then then after that when we started talking and then dating, you had shared with me what she said to you.
Yeah, she said, "If you screw this up or you hurt her, I will effing kill you." I mean, she might have actually said the word, but
I bet
I
she said the
I
word.
I laughed and I smiled and I said, I'm glad I'm glad." Basically said, "Hey, I'm glad that that's the case. It's nice to have people like that in your corner." So I was happy that, you had people looking out. And obviously those people too, because of the small community, they had seen what you had gone through with your divorce and everything. So there was a lot of protective, friends out there, which was good. So, and I
Yeah.
knew that. I mean, the women in that gym made it very apparent that, like, "Hey, we will come after you," which I thought was fun in the sense that, like, just that you had that kind of a backing. Not that I was worried about anything, but um, that it was good.
Yeah. So, my next question would be like, how did you approach trust early on in our relationship? Just knowing my past, having that like obviously trust is always going to be an issue or not an issue, but it's up there, right? It's a thing to strive for in any relationship, but with that extra additional just part of my past, um did you have a different approach than you would have?
Yeah, I guess I erred on the side of openness in the sense that, like, if you had a question about me or anything about me, I wanted to make sure that you knew that I had no problem with you asking or whatever. Like, if you had any concerns, like, I guess I was kind of in the thinking of, like, let's just address them as early as possible. Like, even if it's a something that you feel was silly or whatever, like, just bring it up. Let's identify what it is. We can talk about it, and then we can, like, move on. Because I mean, so many times, and you think back kind of when you're younger too, like, how many times did this kind of stuff pop up when you were younger and, like, immature, inexperienced, whatever, and you just kinda like, "Oh, well, I don't know," and then you kinda let that whatever that thought is kinda just simmer in your brain, and your brain takes it all these different directions, and, I feel like we were both pretty good about this in the sense of, like, "Hey, this might be silly, but I have this question," or whatever it was, and then you put it out there, the person can address it, and then, like I said, you just move on and, like, you don't have all this worry for no reason. So, like, if it was my phone, if it was whatever, like, "Yeah, here you go. What do you wanna know?" Like, "Here's my phone," like, from the phone perspective, especially with everything that had happened, like, "Here's my phone. This is the code to my phone. Here you go. Here's my number." So if you want the passcode, you look at whatever you want on there. So that's kinda how I knowing too, like, trust is not only it's probably the most important thing. I mean, trust and love, they kinda go hand in hand, so, like, if you can't trust the person, you're never gonna be able to have a good loving relationship, so my whole perspective was, like, I'm gonna focus on trust so much that this never even an issue. I
Yeah.
mean, knowing that initially it is gonna be just because your defenses are up and that's just almost reflexive from everything else, but, like, I have to earn it. There's, like, this earn slash proof thing there, right? So you have to, like I just didn't wanna leave any doubt, I guess, that I was not trustworthy, so
Yeah.
that's what I did.
And I think, on my end, a couple things again, you're talking about just being upfront, and that's what I try to do. I was not interested in games or not saying what I meant and feeling resentful or again, like kinda like you said, having like a something you're just wondering about, but you're too afraid to like ask or say that it's a fear. But I also try to be really upfront with you that I had a lot of walls. I had a lot of protective walls that I had built up, and I remember telling you, I don't know how long it's gonna take for those to come down. And so I wanted that was one thing I wanted to be really upfront with you, is like, you may see some of this, like, questioning or what may seem like distrust, but it's really just this wall that I put up that I am hopefully gonna be breaking down and not having, but it's there right now. Um,
You did say that very early on, so
mhm, yeah. And also, I would say on that, the trust piece is so important, and I think the big thing that I did with you is I was very aware of, do your words and your actions match? Like, when you say something, are you doing that too? Or, I definitely didn't wanna be in a relationship where there was, like, someone who just said the things but didn't follow that up with the actual action of the things, and so I think I really was watching for a while, like, are these things matching? Is who he says he is that really who he is? So I know I appreciate your patience with me in that phase. So anyways, the next one that kind of leads into, were there moments that you can like recall that you could feel that something was being like triggered in me, or like that wall was kind of there? And then like what did you think and how did you respond in those moments?
um, yeah, very early on in us starting to date, your was it your washer or your dryer? I forget.
I don't remember,
Washer?
one of them.
One of the washer or dryer, one of them, went on the fritz, and you had said something about having to get a new one, and I basically said, "Hey, I can get a discount, would you want my discount?" And you were very, very opposed to that, so it obviously triggered you in some way, and I was kinda like I guess I just took a step back and was like, "Okay." I mean, I don't know if that was, an independence thing or I don't need no man or something like that, kind of a reaction. It was one of those things where, like, I could have reacted differently, but I was just kinda like, "Okay." I took a breath, like, "Alright, do what you feel comfortable with, and I'm willing to help you if you want, but if not, that's okay, I get it." Like, it was kinda looking back on it, it was like, well, that was pretty early on, like and I think too, we were so early on in our dating life at that point together that you could argue like, well, would you feel like you owed me something? And
Mm,
so as I was thinking about that more, I kind of was like, oh yeah, that I could totally understand where she's coming from. So I'm just gonna leave that alone, no big deal. And then, the other one was just an incident where I had given you the password to my phone, and you felt very guilty about it, but you had looked at the phone and, like, gone through all my text messages and stuff, and then you came clean about it, and I was just like, "Okay." I mean, I don't know what to tell you, like, there isn't anything on there that you have to worry about, but you at that point, I think you knew because you had seen everything, so, um, I mean, obviously something had triggered you, but that was okay. I think it almost I mean, you felt very guilty about it, but I think it almost needed to happen because like you said, like, am I saying the things but also doing the things? And, like, you being able to check me at that point at a time where you were obviously triggered by something, then,
Mhm.
you could see the proof that, like, "Oh, yeah, I wasn't, like, doing anything." You feel very guilty about it, but I wasn't upset about it, and I thought that in the end, it was probably a good thing that it happened just 'cause it kind of showed you that I wasn't trustworthy. Um, I mean, the other interesting thing was as far as talking about walls was I definitely will put up walls as far as, like, what I will tell people as far as, like, my private life or, like, in that case, my daughter. And you had a little bit more of a wall from that standpoint, but, on your side too, you were, like, just trying to be protective of them with, experiencing that whole thing with their parents getting divorced. And, so that was
Mhm.
kind of an interesting thing too, and it was just a case where it's like, I can't push, you'll feel comfortable when you feel comfortable and kind of, like, share them with me when that comfort level is good, and then, I think it worked
Yeah,
out.
that's an interesting point too. I think from all those examples you shared, like, yeah, when you asked me if I wanted to use your discount, and I remember thinking like, yeah, it kind of was just this I could feel myself on this like, "Oh, I don't wanna, like, depend on him, so I wanna just take care of this myself." And again, you were very gracious about it. You didn't get defensive with me or make me feel bad with the phone. Again, yes. Like I can remember just this thought in my head of just like, what if this is happening again and you're gonna look like a fool again and you're gonna look like an idiot and well, like just blah 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 blah, all this kind of like talk in my head. And I can remember like, because we were at that point we were getting serious when that happened with the phone. I don't think we were engaged yet, but we might
No,
no, we weren't engaged yet.
no.
Anyways, so it was just this opportunity, his phone was sitting there, and I just thought like, "Oh my gosh, I just have to know," and went through it, and then immediate felt shame, but, when I talked to him about it, I just as soon as he was back, I was like, "Here, I just did this, and I'm really sorry." And then he was just very no defensiveness, nothing, like, he did not make me feel bad, he basically just said, like, "I gave you my password and I meant it, like, you can look in this anytime you want to." So, I think those were big things because if he would have responded in defensive and, you know, angry ways, that for me would have not made me feel safe. And then with kids, that's a really good point is, like, it is hard, like, when you're in any kind of dating situation, when do you introduce the kids? When do you talk about it? And I know for me and again, like, this is not prescriptive, this is just what worked for me, and stuff. With my kids, I shared with them, once we were dating and we kind of, like, knew, like, this is like, we are in a relationship. I just shared with my kids that I was dating and I was in a relationship and, that I was gonna leave it up to them, uh, when and if they wanted to meet him, and I just kinda I gave them I tried to empower them to be able to make that decision when they felt ready, and I didn't wanna hide anything from them, so that was really how I approached it with my kids, was just like, "This is what's happening, and I want you to know that I trust you to let me know when you would like to meet him," so that's what we did. And I'm not sure what you said as far as, like, the meeting piece, goes.
Well, yeah, I just kinda talked to her about it, and, um, I uh, I honestly it'd be interesting to talk to her to see if she remembers, but, we had gone to we basically had it was a Saturday, we had a big it was a big day for you, uh, in the sense that you not only met my daughter, that you met a lot of my family. Uh,
Yeah.
it was my dad and stepmom's wedding anniversary, and, we went to my sister's, and so you met my daughter in the morning, which was nice. We
Mhm.
had kind of a time to do that on our own, and then had a couple hours, and then went up to my sister's and met, all those guys, and dad and stepmom, and, uh, my dad is, he was a very welcoming person and just did what I expected, and he basically welcomed you into the family at that point. I mean, so yeah.
Yeah.
But it was also probably interesting from your perspective because, like, that was, like, the last of my walls, I guess, and they, they were flattened pretty quickly that Saturday, so, um, yeah, I just thought, "Well, it's okay, as far as the walls perspective, we'll just, and I just figured it would all happen naturally when it was supposed to happen, and
Yeah.
I think it worked
You
out
were very patient.
well, so.
You were very patient with me. So when those things were happening, and I'm sure there's more times when I had some defensiveness come up or that protectiveness, like, did you in those moments understand that they weren't about, like, lack of interest or anything like that, but really just about me needing to protect myself? I guess what helped you kind of work through that and to not make it mean something that it didn't?
I mean, it was at least to me, it was a very unique start, which, like I said, I think it was, like, the healthiest of starts because we didn't push too hard, too fast, or anything like that, and we talked about everything. So, like, you were very open about, "Hey, I have boundaries. I know that they're there, and I can't tell you when I'm gonna lower them, and this is why I have the boundaries, and you have to be okay with that." And then we had a conversation about it, and I think that was the key is, like, there's no guesswork here. So, oh, this is how things are going right now because, as she said, she has a boundary, and this is why. And okay, that's fine. Like, it all came back to, like, the communication from the very get go. Like, okay, we're just going to be open with each other. Here's the thing. I'm not going to give you any BS. I'm not going to try to sugarcoat anything. This is the thing. If I have a problem or not, I like you. Hey, okay. This is gonna maybe feel like I don't like you, but that's not the case. This is why. And then, so it took all the guesswork out of it for me, which was great because guys are terrible at guesswork, to be honest. But, like, I don't have to read your mind. I already know because you just told me. So, like, all
Mhm.
I have to do is just, like, be whoever I am, and then, we'll just you be you and I'll be me, and we're not gonna try to sugarcoat anything or hide anything or, there's, like you said, no games, and then we'll see where it goes, and so everything happened very naturally because of that. Not to toot our own horn, but everybody should do this kind of thing, honestly, I think. Just, like, talk it out from the get-go, just be open and honest, and if you put it all out there and they still like you at the end of the thing, then, maybe it's gonna be a good situation.
I think that all relationships there can be, especially in I mean, I think at any point in a relationship, but, like, especially as you're getting to know each other, there can definitely be times where it feels like, "Oh, this feels too scary to say what I'm feeling or what I'm worried about, so I'm just not gonna say that." But then that fear, that worry doesn't go away, it just kind of festers, and so then you start, assuming, "Oh, this fear I'm having is true because this." And so I think, like, that us just saying to each other, like, we're gonna just be honest, and if we are feeling something, we're gonna talk about it and not try to hide it or not try to pretend like it's not there. Um, and so I think that that's kind of that this next question, I feel like we kind of answered it through that, but just, like, how did honesty and transparency show up in practical ways? Because it's not like that's how we were in the beginning, and then once we got married, we stopped being that way. We're still that way. Like, we talk about a lot of things, and I don't think that we hold back from having hard conversations with each other when we need to.
Yeah, if something comes up, then we end up talking about it, and, I mean,
Yeah. So a couple episodes ago, I was talking about how the relationship that we have with ourselves, that foundation, is the thing that affects all other relationships. So I will just say, like, for me, I have continued to work on that foundation. And I think, Seth, in your own ways, you've done the same thing, that relationship with yourself. And, um, like for me, that looks like, journaling and going to therapy and doing coaching and all the things to just continue checking in with myself, working through any issues. So I think that a big piece is making sure that you have strong foundational relationships with like yourself so that those are healthy so that you don't bring some of these like doubts into relationships that are based off of like self-doubt, if that makes sense. And so I think like continuing to work on yourself and have that healthy relationship um, with yourself has been so important, and that's something that we have both done and continue to do. And I think too, leading into that foundation, like I think for both of us, it was really important that the foundation of our relationship was built on healthy soil, if you know, because we really worked to like nurture and make sure that that soil was healthy as we started, our little baby relationship. And so all along the way, continuing to nurture that and making sure that we kept that foundation healthy, I think has been really, really impactful and important to us, and to, our relationship.
yeah, I mean, the big thing is, you don't wanna be, like, overly critical with yourself, but at the same time, you kinda it's a good feel like it's a good thing, is my opinion anyway. A good thing to kinda, like, just self-analyze a little bit, like, "Hey, how was I perceiving X? Is there a way that I could have looked at that differently?" And then you just kind of peel it back a little bit, like, was there a different way to look at whatever? And then, as far as the kind of the self-work, I mean, a lot of that was necessary after, being in long-term relationships, and you're like, "Okay, well, did I handle this the best way, or could I have handled this differently?" And then as you start to work through some of those things on your own, it kinda helps you, like, in the future. So then it's like, okay, if you run across a similar problem again, like, okay, maybe instead of jumping to this decision or feeling or whatever, maybe I should, you know, take a breath and think through things a little bit before acting or responding or whatever. So, like you said, I think a good thing to be doing is just like working on the soil, as you said. How can I just be a better person? Like, how can I do things in a more healthy way? And
Mhm.
so, and if that means, yeah, journaling is a good way because then you're writing out some of those feelings that you might not be able to talk with somebody about, and you can look through that, or talking to somebody, and just talking to somebody can help pull some of those things out and, work through them. So that's all super
Yeah.
important to the
And I think we've both kinda
forward.
talked about this is, if you're a Ted Lasso fan, the be curious, not judgmental piece. And I think that that is when we lead with curiosity, if something happens where, I mean, you can't be in a relationship with somebody and never have, you know, conflict. Like conflict is part of relationships. And so I think that both Seth and I have tried to just be curious when something happens and maybe one of us responds not in a way that we were expecting or whatever. Being able to stay in curiosity and not going into judgment has helped.
Yeah, I would argue like that the very few times that we have had arguments, that if you peel it all the way down, it boils down to that exact thing, curious versus judgmental, where
Yeah.
we kind of made a judgment rather than taking a breath, asking some questions, and being more curious about it. Because after our argument, as we, maybe not in the moment, but later on talked about it, it was like, oh, this was a curiosity issue that we judged.
Mhm.
Had we been more curious, like, we probably would have never had the argument to begin with because
Yeah.
we would have taken a breath, asked questions, and we would have, like, moved right past it instead of whatever. So, and that's just one of those things, like any relationship, you work through some of that stuff, but, like, leaning towards the curious side, I think
Yeah.
you're gonna both come out better in the end because you're gonna learn, "Oh, this is why I said that. I didn't really mean for it to come out like that," or "This is what I really was trying to say," or, "This is what I thought, and this is why I acted like I did because I was thinking this," but,
Mm.
then it turns out, "Oh, I didn't have enough information." So it ends up just
Yeah.
coming back to communicating and being curious, so
And it's like that assuming, like, again, like something can happen and one person can assume, oh, it means this. And if you don't take that step and be curious about it, then that assumption is going to be what you think is fact. And many times that's not the case. Many times we jump to the worst case scenario or whatever. That's just human nature. And so being able to pause and, um, and learn how to stop and not allow your assumption to go farther and really just be curious and ask the questions, um, and dig a little deeper, I think has been an important piece on managing conflict in our marriage. So, what do you think the process of these experiences, especially like early on in our relationship, as we were getting to know each other and as we were navigating some of these like walls and, just all the normal things that go along with the beginning of a relationship? Is there anything specifically that it taught you about yourself?
yeah, I guess I would say that there was some learning and maybe a little bit of evolution in the sense of, like, the openness piece, like, I tend to be kind of introverted, sort of private, whatever, but if you're in a relationship with somebody and it doesn't have to be necessarily, it could be just a friendship. It's not for every relationship, but if it's a really close relationship, then, the openness piece, I think is key, is just, like,
Mhm.
putting things out there. If there's any, worries or concerns, just, like, be upfront with them early rather than, what most people tend to do, and I know I've done it when I was younger, like, "Oh, I'm just gonna continue to analyze the situation and probably continue to worry unnecessarily about XYZ when, you know, with you and I, we just like cut to the chase and like, okay, I got to be honest with you. This bothered me or this was worrying me. And then you have a conversation about it. And then by the end of the conversation, you're like, oh, well, that was silly. And you just saved yourself like, you know, a week of worry because you just
Mhm.
cut to the chase. So
Yeah, definitely. Um, is there any if there's somebody in your shoes, like, maybe they're liking somebody and they're wanting to start talking with someone, ask them out or whatever, but they know that they have something in their past that was, really hard or made it so they had some trust issues. Is there anything that you would say to somebody in your shoes that was helpful that you wish you would have known, um, back then?
I don't know that there was anything that I wish I would have known. I just, if there was somebody kind of going through this similar thing in my shoes, I would just say, just be open. It's okay to have uncomfortable conversations and, be willing to, the big thing is going to be willing to listen and, to just talk through things like knowing what the other person is, expecting from the relationship is not a bad thing, like, so having those conversations as far as like, "Hey, my priority is my kids, like, this is how I'm gonna approach this, just so you're aware." And,
Yeah.
you know, asking the questions and being willing to answer the questions, I think makes you more open to trust the person because you know what they're thinking and you know what they're expecting and you've shared that with them too, so that would be my word of advice, I guess.
Yeah. I like it. Okay, last question is like looking back just kind of at our dating life and engagement, our marriage, our married life. What are you most grateful for and how we have navigated this together?
Ooh, what am I
Mm.
most grateful for? Um, I guess I'm gonna be very repetitive, but I am most grateful for just our ability to communicate because
Mhm.
I feel like we started out that way being focused on communication and open and honest with each other, and then it has just carried forward. And I think that it's huge because, again, no games. It takes so much worry out of anything early on that everybody is going to have. And we know what to expect from each other and we know what each other wants in whatever situation because we've talked about it. So,
Mhm.
if you know what your partner is thinking and you know what their expectations are and you know what their wants are, like it's huge because kind of like help you help me, Jerry Maguire style here. Like I know what you want. I know what you're expecting from whatever it is. And then I know how to be like the best partner to help facilitate whatever that thing is. So I guess that would be my gratefulness.
Yeah, I like it. Now, okay, I'm gonna ask one more question. This doesn't have to be, we can take this out if this doesn't, if nothing comes up. But I thought it might be fun. Is there any like anything funny that maybe has happened in any of these experiences that you want to share or that sticks out?
Well, I guess I don't know if it's funny, haha, but it's kind of fun, I guess. So I kind of opened up my family fairly early on, and you met my daughter, you met my dad, both in the same day. My dad, he and I were very close, so he was able to see things, notice changes in me because we spent a lot of time together and we talked like very regularly, and so he could see kind of what our relationship was. I think he was able to see things very early, and I think you and I were both a little more conservative in the sense of like, let's just pump the brakes a little bit here and see how things go. But he was like very, I don't know, he'd known you for a month and we had taken a family vacation. Um,
I was not on this family vacation.
yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
me and my daughter, and then dad and my stepmom. And then my brother and his kids, we all traveled to, Cancun and spent, I don't know, 5, 6 days in Cancun together. And it was it was a very fun vacation for a lot of reasons. One of them being that the resort was like, uh, not quite up to par with a few things, but we had a lot of just really fun conversations and here we are in Cancun, we're on the beach, and he's like, "Oh, you and Faith, you guys should do a destination wedding." I mean, you and I were a month and a half into our dating life, and he was ready to, he was pursuing destination wedding. He knew, and he was honest with me about it too. He said, "Hey, I can tell that you guys got something. It's good, and um, what are you waiting for?" And he was also I felt like he was a pretty good judge of character, so I think that says a lot too because he was, like, observing you and, talking with you and all that, and so he could see those things and a good judge of character, and so a month and a half in, he figures this out, and then, a year later, we got or, more than a year later, I guess it was, like, 16 months later, we get married, destination wedding on the beach in Mexico, just like he had predicted or
Mhm.
recommended, a month and a half into our dating, so,
Yeah.
and it worked out. It was, like, one of the coolest trips I've ever been on for sure, and
Mm.
s
Yeah.
so, I guess that's not funny so much as to say, like,
Yeah, just sweet.
you know, sweet and but also, you have those people in your life that you're close to, and, those are kind of, like I said, you have the character references going into the relationship, and then you got these people that are kinda observing things, and he definitely made his observations, and so it was a good, experience and memory from that standpoint for sure.
And I do think, like, there's you know, I think a part of this of, like, you have mentioned, like, both of us came into this with, like, our kids are our priority. And so I think that both of us just we took that to heart all the time through all the decisions that we made. We thought about how this would affect our kids and, we were constantly
Yeah,
thinking of that and both for our own kids and for each other's, we were very mindful about that, and we tried to be very mindful about that. And I think it was kind of talking about when we did get engaged, um, I know like you involved your daughter in helping pick out the ring, and you involved my kids because you individually asked them, kind of if permission's the right word, but you got like their approval um, going into before you proposed to me. And so I think that that is something that was really important to us is to make sure that our kids always felt supported along the way and having open communication with them too, throughout the process. And I think, and we still do that to this day for sure. Keep our kids are a very big part of our lives.
very much in the loop.
Um, the other funny thing that when you're talking about your dad, this memory of us early on dating, like I think we were maybe when you guys got back from that Mexico trip, maybe, and somehow your dad asked if I would help perform like a I don't know if surgery is the right word, but a procedure on one of his goats.
Yeah,
So, um, here we are, like 6 weeks about into our relationship, and we are at your dad's farm. He's holding the goat. The goat had like a cyst or something on its leg, and we had all the supplies, and I was kind of your surgical
I
tech,
think it
I
was
guess.
on its neck or something. I feel like
Yeah.
it was
Oh, it was
on
the
its
neck.
neck
Okay.
when we
Yeah. And you are performing, I'm handing you scalp and just like scalpel, lidocaine, like, whatever you needed. I was handing it to you. And I remember like, your dad after that just being like,
I think he was I think he loved that whole thing. That was it was a fun experience, and I think he was just like, you know, he already had you pegged as a keeper, but I think that, like, solidified a lot of things right there. So,
I think that's the other piece that maybe we didn't say yet is that it's so important to have fun with each other. And I think there's so many different ways that we have made that also a priority in our relationship, anywhere from like, I don't know if you follow me on social media, you see that we do our alphabet dates where we have you know, our date is a theme of whatever letter we go in order from A to Z. We take turns planning or we have input into planning and it helps keep some like fun and creativity and, different things. And so I think too, just like along this whole journey of this experience of being in our relationship with each other is we, are open in communication. We have a lot of fun together and, we just we love each other and it's fun to be in a relationship with somebody that you have those things with, and, we just make a good point of keeping all those a priority. Thanks for joining me again. And I know this is not your nature to, like you shared, you are an introvert. And so I appreciate you coming on and just giving some knowledge to other people. And hopefully, this is helpful for somebody in that same experience.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you're just in the other room, so I'm going to see you in just a second. But I appreciate it. All right. Okay, everybody. Well, that's going to wrap up this episode. I know this is a longer one than my normal episodes. I hope you enjoyed it. I would love to hear feedback, thoughts. If you've experienced something similar, maybe you have tried dating and it hasn't gone well. I'm hoping some of these tips can help you move through dating and new relationships in a way that feels good to you both. So, all right. Well, we'll talk soon. Next week, next episode. See you then. Thank you so much for listening to the Love Your Real Life podcast. I hope that today's episode was just what you needed. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you're looking for more support, check out the show notes for how to connect. Remember, no matter what your story holds, you are worthy of living a life that you love. Talk to you soon.